What happens when a daughter who thinks she is protecting her family starts acting like she owns her mother's life? That may be the emotional bomb building on The Bold and the Beautiful right now. Because this storyline is no longer just about Taylor and Deacon's forbidden connection. It is no longer just about Sheila's shadow hanging over every decision. It may be turning into something even more personal, a battle over control, respect, and just how far Steffy is willing to go to stop a relationship she hates. And if Steffy keeps pushing, Taylor may finally reach her breaking point. That is why the idea of Taylor exploding and slapping Steffy feels so powerful. Not because of the shock alone, but because it would signal something much deeper. It would mean Taylor has stopped feeling like a mother being heard and started feeling like a woman being cornered. So let's break this down, because the deeper this story gets, the more it feels like Steffy may be creating the very crisis she is trying to avoid. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, is Steffy right to fear Sheila no matter what, or has she crossed the line by trying to control Taylor's love life? And if you enjoy these bold and the beautiful spoiler breakdowns, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. One reason this romance is so interesting is that Taylor and Deacon did not chase it recklessly in the beginning. It grew quietly. Taylor was there for Deacon emotionally. Deacon leaned on Taylor during a painful, confusing chapter of his life. Both of them were dealing with old wounds, unresolved heartbreak, and the kind of loneliness that can make unexpected connections feel very real. Over time, those conversations stopped being simple support and started becoming something more intimate. That matters because it changes the tone of the story. This is not just a flashy soap fling built on instant passion. It is a relationship that seems to have formed through vulnerability. Taylor opened up about Ridge. Deacon opened up about Sheila. They saw each other at difficult moments, and from that emotional honesty, feelings started to build. That is exactly why it may be so hard for Taylor to walk away now. Because when a relationship is born out of emotional rescue, it often feels deeper than it looks from the outside. Taylor may not see Deacon as a rebound or a risky distraction. She may see him as the first man in a long time who truly met her in her pain instead of treating her like a fallback option. And that is where Steffy's interference becomes even more explosive. Because the more Taylor believes this connection is real, the more insulting it may feel when Steffy treats it like a mistake that needs to be corrected. Steffy does have reasons to fear Sheila. No one can deny that. Sheila has done terrible things in the past. She has hurt people Steffy loves. She has left behind trauma that still shapes how this family reacts to danger. So if Steffy sees Taylor and Deacon getting closer and immediately imagines Sheila retaliating, that fear makes emotional sense. But fear does not automatically make every action reasonable. That is where Steffy may be slipping into dangerous territory. Because warning Taylor is one thing. Trying to dictate her choices is something else entirely. If Steffy is threatening emotional distance, using the grandchildren as leverage, or making Taylor feel like she will lose her family support system unless she obeys, then this stops being loving concern. It starts becoming punishment. And that changes the emotional balance completely. Taylor is a grown woman. She is not one of Steffy's children. She is not someone who should have to ask permission to explore a relationship, even a messy one. Yet Steffy seems to be acting less like a daughter sharing concern and more like a parent laying down rules. That role reversal may be the real spark behind the explosion. Because Taylor has spent so much time being understanding, forgiving, and patient with the people around her. But patience runs out when love starts feeling conditional. If Taylor begins to sense that Steffy only respects her when she makes the right choices, then resentment may build fast. And once resentment turns into humiliation, the next scene could get ugly. This is the part of the story that makes the conflict less simple than it first appears. Steffy still sees Sheila as a direct threat to her family. In her mind, that judgment is final. End of story. But the problem is that the current version of Sheila is no longer lining up perfectly with the monster Steffy remembers. Sheila saved Steffy's life when Luna turned dangerous. Sheila has not lashed out violently in a long time. Her behavior has changed enough that even people who do not trust her are being forced to admit something uncomfortable. She may not be exactly who she used to be. That does not erase history. But it does complicate Steffy's certainty. And that may be why viewers are starting to question whether Steffy is being fully fair. Because if Sheila is changing, even a little, then Steffy's refusal to acknowledge any nuance may begin to look obsessive. Worse, it may make her blind to her own behavior. She may be so focused on the threat Sheila could become that she cannot see the damage she is causing right now. That irony is classic soap drama. The person who claims to be stopping chaos may actually be feeding it. And if Steffy keeps escalating, she may push Taylor closer to Deacon instead of pulling her away. Nothing strengthens a forbidden romance like outside pressure. The more Steffy condemns it, the more Taylor may cling to it as proof that her life still belongs to her. If Taylor really does explode and slap Steffy, the moment would not just be about rage. It would be about dignity. Because what Taylor may be reacting to is not a single argument, but a pattern. A daughter who assumes authority. A daughter who speaks to her like she is incapable of making her own decisions. A daughter who believes fear gives her the right to draw the boundaries of Taylor's emotional life. At some point, Taylor may stop hearing concern and start hearing disrespect. And that is when everything changes. A slap in soap terms is rarely just physical shock. It is symbolic. It says, "You do not get to talk to me this way." It says, "You do not get to reduce me to someone who needs to be managed." It says, "I am still your mother, and you have forgotten that." That is why this potential moment feels so big. Because it would not simply be Taylor losing her temper. It would be Taylor reclaiming her voice after being pushed into a corner. It would be the emotional consequence of Steffy forgetting where concern ends and control begins. Of course, if that happens, the fallout could be immediate and painful. Steffy may be stunned, hurt, furious. She may feel betrayed by the very mother she thinks she is trying to protect. But even then, the deeper issue will remain unresolved. Was Taylor wrong to snap? Or did Steffy create the conditions that made a breakdown inevitable? That is the question the show may want viewers debating. If Taylor and Steffy shatter emotionally, Deacon may become even more important. That is where this storyline could get more dangerous. Because if Taylor leaves an explosive argument feeling judged, controlled, and emotionally abandoned by her own daughter, where is she likely to turn? Straight toward the man who makes her feel understood. Straight toward the man who listens instead of lectures. Straight toward Deacon. And that would be a nightmare for Steffy. The very outcome she is trying to prevent could become more likely because of how hard she pushed. Deacon would not need to manipulate anything. He would just need to be present. He would just need to give Taylor comfort, calm, and acceptance. In a vulnerable moment, that may be more powerful than any grand romantic declaration. And once Taylor feels safer with Deacon than with her own family, this story could shift from a controversial romance into a full emotional divide. That is when the damage starts lasting longer than one scene. Because Steffy may not just lose the argument. She may lose influence over Taylor entirely. At the center of this storyline is a painful possibility. Steffy may believe she is saving her mother, while actually pushing her further away than ever before. That is why this possible slap matters so much. It is not only a dramatic shock. It is the sign of a deeper fracture that may have been building for a while. Taylor wants the right to choose. Steffy wants the power to stop disaster. And between those two needs, this family may be heading for an emotional collision neither of them can easily undo. If Steffy cannot step back, and if Taylor refuses to be controlled, then Deacon may become more than a boyfriend. He may become the line that divides mother and daughter. And once that happens, the fallout could spread far beyond this romance. Thanks for watching. This story is getting more intense by the day, and if Taylor finally snaps, Steffy may discover that going too far can cost much more than an argument.